What is your greatest weakness? Of all the interview questions, this is like the classic trap gotcha question. You know, when people YouTube questions, this is a question they're looking for. It's just such a classic. And I don't think I've ever tackled it in its entirety today, but today I'm gonna tell you how to answer this question, 3 things you need to accomplish, and then 9 different examples of acceptable answers for this interview question. So, you have an interview, you walk in, you shake hands, you sit down, you look across the table at the person and they say to you, Ben, what is your greatest weakness? What do you say? It's such a classic trap question, and I don't think I've actually addressed it fully before, so I'm gonna use today's video to kind of talk about how you answer this question. So for me, I think there are 3 things you need to accomplish. So we're gonna talk about those 3 things today, and I'm also gonna give you 9 ways you can answer this question. So 9 greatest weaknesses that are suitable answers to pass this question with flying colors. I'm Ben with Ben Talks Talent, and let's get started. So the first thing, what you absolutely cannot do is reveal a character trait or a personality trait that would make you a terrible fit for the job, right? So let's just say an easy example, you're an accountant, you can't say, well, my biggest weakness is I am terrible with numbers and sometimes I round for no reason. That would be a bad answer. So that's the first thing you have to do. But a lot of people stop there. They go, okay, it can't be something that is a terrible trait for me to have. But the interviewer is actually looking to get a few more things out of you. So one of the things they're looking for is your honesty. They want someone who's going to share what they feel is an honest, realistic weakness that they have or they're trying to overcome. The second thing they're looking for is somebody who has self-awareness. They want somebody who knows themselves and knows that they have weaknesses in what they are and what they need to do to combat them. So those are the kind of 3 things that they're looking to accomplish. Now, the 3 things that you need to do. So first, you need to give them a real answer, that isn't ridiculous. I think people have a tendency to say things that are completely off base and aren't a real weakness. They just sound really good, but you're pretending they're a weakness. For example, my greatest weakness is that I care. I care too much. The next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure you don't state something that makes you look like a horrible fit, right? So like I said before, the accountant thing, having someone who is terrible with numbers, that is a bad flaw to have for that job. That's one of the things you need to make sure. Whatever your flaw is, it can't be one that would put you at a severe disadvantage to be competent at the role you're interviewing for. An example of this would be, my greatest weakness? Theft. Theft, yeah, it just makes me feel alive. You know what I mean? Is that your pen? What kind of pen is that? And then the last thing you need to accomplish is that whatever thing you said that is real, is viable, isn't a terrible answer for the job, and comes off as honest, the last thing you have to do is talk about how it's something that you've had a problem with before, but you've kind of slayed that dragon, right? Whatever the issue is, it's an issue that you've had. It has been a legitimate issue in the past, but you've kind of fixed it, you've learned from it, and you've moved forward. Those are kind of the 3 things you need to do to make sure that you're answering this question. So the next thing on your mind is probably, okay, great, Ben. Well, what are some examples that cover all 3 of those bases? And here we go. So the first one, my greatest weakness is I focus too much on the details. So why is this a good example? So this is a good example because it could be a legitimate issue, right? It's an issue because in today's fast-moving world, maybe sometimes you need to be able to complete things and move forward to the next task. But if you're admitting that, I get bogged down in the details sometimes, that is a legitimate potential greatest weakness. It's something that could be a hindrance to your performance, but it isn't debilitating in their eyes. You can also say, in addition to that, what I've learned is that sometimes you need to, put forth your best work, check, put in safeguards to make sure you're not making any significant errors, and then move on to the next one. So while this used to be an issue for me, I've learned to be more task-oriented and move more quickly and efficiently through things. The next one, I have a hard time letting go of a project. I like this one a lot because it's a real problem we face, right? You get attached to something, you do research, you do your best work, that's your baby, and you don't want to let it go. So this is a problem where you could say, look, I have a hard time getting attached to it. One of the things I've learned though is that we all serve a function within our organization. And even though I become attached to a project, I know that there's a time that once I've done my portion, I have to be prepared to give it off to people. And it's something I've struggled with in the past. 3, I have trouble saying no. This is one of those ones that almost comes off as a little like a pretend greatest weakness, but I think if you say it right, it's a good one, right? Work-life balance, appropriately balancing our time, making sure we don't take on too much, that can be a legitimate issue for people. So if you say this honestly, you have a good example, and you talk about how you've been good at prioritizing high impact tasks and saying no to things you know you don't have time to complete successfully, that can be a way to answer this question. Let's go to the next one. I get impatient when projects run beyond the deadline. I like this one because it's realistic and everybody can relate to it. Nobody likes having a project and then going past when it's supposed to be finished. So it's it's something that we can all relate to, but it can be a big weakness for you if you're involved in sort of projects and project management and influencing people. Maybe you can't afford to be irritated. You have to be composed in the moment. So that's why it can serve as a good answer to this interview question. You just have to talk about how you've managed to deal with your own disappointment and channel that into a positive action. The next thing, I could use more experience in blank. So this needs to be something where it's not a critical function of your role, but it's something that if you have this skill, it could make you more effective, right? So it could be, I could stand to be a little bit more polished in Excel. My greatest weakness is that I could be more efficient. I could have more knowledge in this space, and I think that would make me more effective at my role. So it's something I'm working on. This one I really like because it gives you the opportunity to talk about what tangible steps you have taken to eradicate this weakness that you have. So it's one of those ones that kind of gives you a little bit of a layup into the, but this is what I'm doing. The next one, I sometimes lack confidence. This is a really good one if you're earlier on in your career, right? Let's just say you're a few years in and you're getting into a part of your career where you need to manage the work of others. Maybe it's through project management, maybe it's through your first people leadership role. Saying that you sometimes lack confidence is a little bit of a weakness. It's something that could be holding you back from being the most effective version of yourself, but it's also something that you can overcome. You can say, to overcome this, what I'm kind of doing is trying to put myself in that position more frequently, where I have to speak, I have to do public speaking. Maybe you say, I'm signing up for Toastmasters and I'll be starting that next month. There are ways you can kind of get around this, but I think it's a really good one if you're earlier on in your career and you're entering a period in which you're going to need to do this more frequently. The next one, I can have trouble asking for help. This is a good one that I think anybody can say because we all have a tendency to want to complete tasks on our own. That is not uncommon, but there's also a time and a place for doing things by yourself, and then a time where it makes sense to bring other people in, either because they're a subject matter expert or because the job is just too big. And having a reluctance to ask people, I think it's a good answer. The next one. It has been difficult for me in the past to work with certain personalities. What I like about this is that everybody can relate to that. Everybody knows there are people that can be challenging to work with. I also like this answer because it's already telling them that it's in the past. In your mind, as it's coming out of your mouth, you're already moving past this weakness. So it's a weakness that you've had, but you're already making progress. And again, it could be someone who, commits to doing something but isn't, somebody who is late. These are things where everybody gets that. It is hard to work with people who have those traits, so saying that won't be off-putting. All right, and the last one, you can say, in the past, again, distancing it from current you, but in the past, I've been uncomfortable with high amounts of ambiguity in my responsibilities. This is a weakness because people want you to be able to take charge and make an impact, but it's also not unreasonable to dislike that. So there you go. Those are 9 ways that you could answer the questions. I hope you found value. If you're seeing this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Which one of these would work best for you, or which one do you like best? Leave it in the comments below. I'd be interested to see how that goes. And thank you for stopping by. Good luck in your next interview. You've got this.